Want to move on to, a different way they're going to add players this offseason. Eric Kendricks, an inside linebacker from the Minnesota Vikings, 2019 first team All Pro player, has been cut today. Is this guy worth a look for the Steelers in free agency? Is it someone they should consider?
I think possibly. You got to look at a number of things. So for one, he's 31 years old. So you got to ask yourself, how many years are you going to get out of this guy? But at the same time, I just said that I think the Steelers are going to target an inside linebacker in the NFL draft. But I think it's going to be one of those versatile guys, the Trenton Simpsons, the Drew Sanders, the guys that could play the edge. They could play the middle. They could play off ball. They really, wherever you need them to play, they'll go do. A Micah Parsons kind of inside linebacker, which is, I think, exactly what they're looking for because they want that next, developmental piece of the NFL. And right now it's that position. If they grab one of those guys, I'm not sure that they want him to play every snap. So, and I think they also want him to move around. So maybe you do add another veteran. I think that, adding a veteran has always been on their to-do list this offseason next to Miles Jack. Kendricks is a name. Is he a big name? I don't know. I think that he's had one really good season, but besides that, he's very consistent. We'll say he had 137 tackles this past season, 2 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for loss. He didn't really do much besides that, though. He had 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. He had 1 sack. Wasn't super impressive. 6 pass deflections. It was kind of like a very boring year for Eric Kendricks. Now, that being said, if he's worth $7 million, $6 million a season, and that's all somebody's going to toss him for a gap player that you could get 2 years out of next to Miles Jack, yeah, go get him. And I think at that moment, you're just like, cool. He's a cheap option. He gives some leadership because, Eric Kendricks has always been known to bring the leadership. I believe he's been a captain on that team for a number of years. You toss him in there. You let him teach the rookie, him teach Mark Andrews, let him and Miles Jack vibe together. And then I don't know. I'm going to say maybe. I'm going to say he's definitely added to their list of interest when it comes to the names they'll look at inside linebacker.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the versatility. You can't try to do everything with one pickup, with one
Yeah.
addition, but you need a guy who can do multiple things in this defense, especially given how thin this team is at linebacker right now. And the age does concern me a little bit. But like you said, short contract, not a ton of money. That would be a sweet spot for the Steelers, and this guy could be really good for them.
Yeah, I think that if you add a rookie inside linebacker that brings that versatility, you don't necessarily have to add an edge rusher in the draft as well because, a guy like Trenton Simpson plays the edge, a guy like Drew Sanders plays the edge. So they could fill that backup edge rusher role behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and the backup inside linebacker role. Now you kind of, you know what I mean? Now you have options. Now you're like, okay, look this guy handles a bunch of positions for us. He's totally fine. We're allowed to do all the things on defense that we want to do. The Steelers don't run 3 inside linebackers ever, so it's not like they have to worry about that. So I think as long as you add a rookie, Kendricks makes sense. If Kendricks is your long-term answer, I think you're just delaying the inevitable.
Right.
But I think certainly a name that they could look at. And I think one that once his market value comes up and we have better understanding of what teams are going to be looking at, because this just happened 10 minutes before we started recording, then you understand if he's really an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But right now, without knowing any numbers, I would say yes. And I would say he's above guys like TJ Edwards. And I don't know, the list is not in my head right now, but David Long is a cheap option. Guys like TJ Edwards is not. And if you're going to look at your options as a whole, the cheaper side of guys is who the Steelers will target. It will not be these splash players. It will be the guys that come in. Tremaine Edmonds, too expensive. You go get those cheap guys and then you draft somebody. And I think that's going to be the Steelers' plan. All right. Oh, go ahead.
No, just I think that's a perfectly fine way to approach it. That's all I was going to say. Just you get splash from other guys on this defense: Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt. Alex Highsmith. You can afford to go a little cheaper with this signing.